minutes. It'll have to be fixed throughout. I don't know if you would like for us to say that or wait for them to say that.
Can you say it so you get it?
All right, it looks like it's 5:30, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. To start off, we'd like to say a pledge of allegiance. Do I have a volunteer to lead that for us? I don't think I've met you on the end.
Joanne.
Can you lead us today? Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'd like to take a roll call.
Of course. Chairperson Gronquist.
Oh, Chair, sorry, President.
Is your microphone on?
Is this better?
Yes, it is. Some of us are half deaf.
Chairperson Gronquist.
Yes.
Chairperson Brinkerhoff.
Yes.
Chairperson Huseman.
Yes.
Chairperson Hernandez.
Yes.
All present, we have a quorum.
Right. I'd like to bring our first case. And-
Sorry, Chair, we're just going to go through the minutes.
Oh, you're right, go for the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
I've noticed it looks like there was an error in the members that were listed, so if we could correct that.
Okay, what was the error?
It looks like we have the members that were present incorrectly listed, so we would need to fix those throughout.
Okay,
And the specific correction, I believe, is Dennis Kamak is not a member of the BOA. I believe it.
That's right.
It was Mr. Leffel who was present.
okay.
So you can do a motion to amend the minutes to reflect that.
Do we have a motion to amend the minutes? So moved. Seconded?
I second.
Do we have a motion and a second to amend the minutes on the attendance of those present? I'd like to call for a vote on that.
Mr. Chair, I have a question real quick.
What was that?
I have a question.
Oh, we have a question on the motion?
Not the motion, separate from the motion. I guess my question is, last meeting, there was one of the cases we voted 3 times for it. Is that a problem? I know the outcome was all the same, but
I'm not sure. Why don't we, because there's a motion on the table, technically we need to get through that first, unless your question's pertinent to that, and then we can move on to your question.
All right, we do have a motion on the table. Are there any, discussion on the motion? All right, and then, take a vote on the motion.
Of course. Chairperson Gronquist.
yes.
Chairperson Brinkerhoff.
Yes.
Chairperson Huseman.
Yes.
And Chairperson Hernandez.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, all.
And then just the
Passes.
motion, the motion to actually approve the minutes as amended would be next.
Oh,
and
so
we'll
we
get to the
we
question.
approved the amended, the amendment to the minutes. Now we got to approve the rest of the minutes. Am I correct on that? All right. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes? So moved. And a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion to approve the minutes?
I guess my question still stands. I don't know if it's a big deal or not, but we voted 3 times on one thing.
I guess I'm just not clear on,
So there
Why the
was
chair
one of the
was-
cases last meeting where the chairperson was not aware that he voted and then went and talked to somebody, then came back, we voted again. He didn't see the results, so we voted again. So we voted 3 times on one case. All the outcomes were the same, but I don't know if that's a big deal or not.
let me check with the
Okay.
secretary one more. I believe that was just a technical issue that the votes didn't register the first time, is my understanding from the secretary. So, and the votes did not change in terms of yay or nay, so it doesn't seem to be an issue.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Any other discussion? Then I call for a vote on the motion to accept the minutes.
Of course, Chairperson Grunkeist,
Aye.
Chairperson Brinkerhoff,
Yes?
Chairperson Huseman,
Yes.
Chairperson Hernandez.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we have our first case this evening. Turn it over to, I believe it's the attorney gets to introduce the case, am I correct?
Sure, yes. I will do that. And this is case number A-1765-U-23, that's Jiffy Lube International, Inc., is requesting a use by permit for a minor vehicle repair facility to be located at 6155 Parkway Drive. The subject property is approximately .53 acres in size and zone General Commercial District, or C2, and Matt Kowalski from staff will be presenting.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. As mentioned, the case I'll be presenting is for a Jiffy Lube Multi-Care use by permit located at 6155 Parkway Drive. So this case, the applicant is requesting a minor vehicle repair facility within the Commerce City Plaza shopping center. And the zoning district is C2, General Commercial District, and a use by permit is required to allow this use in the C2 zoning district. There's one related case, which is D552-23. That is a development plan for the same project, and that will be approved administratively by staff after the use by permit decision is rendered by you tonight. So this is the vicinity map. The parcel with the black cross hatching is the subject property where the Jiffy Lube facility is proposed for. Everything you see in the pink that says C2, that's the remainder of the Commerce City Plaza Shopping Center, where King Soopers, grocery store, and Pizza Hut and some other uses are. The orange to the north, labeled PUD, that is the Mile High Greyhound Park development, which is currently developing. And then just for reference, that blue public piece of land to the south is where Eagle Point Recreation Center is. This is just the aerial image of the site. So the one with the red border around it is the proposed location. You'll see it's just to the north of the existing Pizza Hut location. And then this area probably looks pretty familiar to a lot of you. That's because last month, the Board of Adjustment approved a King Soopers gas station, which would be on that parcel that is just to the north, slightly to the northeast of the subject property here tonight. Before you is just a photo of the current conditions of the property. It's currently undeveloped and vacant land along Parkway Drive. And there's a second photo for you there from the other direction, showing where it's right next to the existing Pizza Hut restaurant. So this is the site plan for the proposed Jiffy Lube. So I'm putting this up there for your reference. Just as a reminder, this is not up for your approval tonight. This would be approved by the related development plan case, but I'm putting it up to show the layout as well as there will be a shared access point with the Jiffy Lube and the King Soopers gas station. I know that was a question last month when the gas station was presented, so I just wanted to put that in front of you. So this here is the project analysis. Some notes on the analysis. This site is located within Commerce City Plaza, as mentioned, and the entirety of that plaza is commercial uses. The proposed Jiffy Lube location will be provided with sufficient access to the subject property. A neighborhood meeting was conducted on May 15th, 2023, for this proposal, at which staff and the applicant were present to present, and no members of the public attended that meeting. In addition, the proposed use by permit has been reviewed by all relevant development review team agencies, and there are currently no outstanding comments or concerns with the use as proposed. The review process has determined that the use by permit request is consistent with the goals set forth in the city's comprehensive plan. And lastly, the development review team has determined that all approval criteria for the use by permit have been met. We do have those available. If anyone on the board would like to dig into those farther, just let me know and I can pull those up for you. So the public comment deadline was prior to today, July 11th, 2023, and no public comments have been received by the deadline related to this case. Some considerations for your discussion. This proposed use is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. The proposed development will also reduce the number of vacant and undeveloped lots in Commerce City Plaza, and it'll put to use a property that currently sits unused. And then once this and the gas station next door are developed, there will be no remaining vacant lots in that plaza. And this proposal will also help accommodate additional service needs related to any future population growth from the nearby Mile High Greyhound Park development. The potential outcomes for this case before you are approval with conditions, denial, and continuance. And that concludes staff's presentation. Staff is available to answer any questions. The applicant is also here to present and answer any questions you may have as well.
Question on point of order. Do we get to ask him questions, or do we have the applicant come up first?
You can ask questions now, but it's up to you.
Okay. Does any of the committee have questions for the planning department? Okay. Is the applicant want to come forward and make any presentations or add any comments?
Good evening. My name is Samantha McAfee. I'm with 7 Multi-Site Solutions representing Jiffy Lube at the address of 6155 Parkway Drive. We'd like to thank you for your time this evening to review our project, and thank you, Matt, as well, for your help thus far. So a little background on Jiffy Lube. We currently have over 2,000 franchise locations across the U.S. This site will be operated by a preferred franchisee that runs facilities nationwide that has knowledge on how to operate and maintain a Jiffy Lube facility to the highest standards. Also, Jiffy Lube's design and business operations and safety record are exemplary. On the screen, you'll see a list of the services that Jiffy Lube provides. We focus, sorry about that. The focus is on oil changes, inspections, and minor repairs such as brakes and filter replacement. Jiffy Lube is oriented to a quick service, not full service like some of our competitors. There's some overlap, but we offer different things. We look at this as a true minor service auto use. There's typically no outdoor storage, and the service lasts around 30 to 120 minutes. Jiffy Lube locations operate between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. daily with reduced hours on the weekends. The peak hours are typically Saturday afternoons, and there are 4 to 6 employees per shift, one being the location manager. The largest types of vehicles that will be serviced will be dually trucks or F-350 equipment, and the locations are not typically a big trip generator with an estimate of 50 to 60 cars per day. Here you'll see our site plan. The customers will enter where that top red arrow is. They will go around the building and enter the bays from the south side of the building. All work is done inside the bays, and they also close the garage doors when they are servicing the vehicles. The customers will wait inside the customer lounge while their vehicle is being serviced. And once the services are complete, vehicles will exit through the north bays, as you'll see the arrows on the top of the screen there. And there is no overnight parking, so you won't have to worry about anyone parking their vehicle overnight for service the next day. For waste and disposal and storage, there's no unsightly inventory items or waste that will be stored outside of the building. General and non-regulated waste is removed from this facility daily. The used tires, batteries, and brakes will be stored inside the building and removed regularly. Oils and fluids are removed from within the service bays by a pump truck periodically, and an oil water separator will be installed as part of the proposed project. Regular inspections and maintenance will be performed on that oil water separator, and each location has their own spill prevention, control, and countermeasure plan in case any spills were to happen. As I mentioned before, all work is done within the bays. There's no work being done outside of the building, so that helps minimize the sound. Impact wrenches generate noise, but they're not continuous noise. The separation distance from the nearby properties is beyond 60 feet, with the bays at a further 10 to 20 feet distance due to the building design. As you'll notice, the bays face north and south, so they're not facing any of the residences. Additionally, along with the existing fence and proposed landscaping, this will further reduce any potential noise impact from this operation. We plan to comply with the decibel level requirements that are set by the Code of Ordinances, and all sounds on site are non-continuous in nature, so they're equivalent to many other proposed retail uses in the center. For lighting, the building and yard lights provided are intended to be the minimum necessary for safety and access on the site. The hours of operation and no overnight parking allow for minimum lighting on site, and the lighting that we have proposed meets the Commerce City requirements. The proposed site is a 3,000 square foot building located in the Parkway Drive, King Soopers development, and Jiffy Lube will install the new new access drive to the development and new landscaping as pictured on the right side of the screen. For site setbacks, the parking for the employees is located on the west side of the lot away from Parkway Drive. The building is located 25 feet away from the east property line and 117 feet away from the nearest residence. For landscaping, the proposed trees include red maple, spring snow crabapple, and Princeton elm. The planting beds are planned throughout the landscaped areas, and the remaining areas are to be grass, as pictured on the landscape plan there. And there's a picture of our architectural rendering of what the site will look like. And that drive there to the right of the site is the proposed access drive that currently does not exist. Signage is proposed on 3 sides of the building as shown to the left, and the monument sign above will be along Parkway Drive. Open it up for any questions.
Does anyone on the board have any questions? And I don't suppose we had anyone show up who wants to, from the public, who wants to make a comment that signed in? Okay, then we will close the public comment portion of this meeting. And any internal discussion from the board? Okay, it doesn't look like we have any internal discussion. Do we, have someone who wants to make a motion on this case?
I'd like to, but I wonder if maybe there's a script that could be passed out to the rest of the board members so that we can see proposed motions.
There are motions in the packet, sir, and the motion for approval is on the screen at this time.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Adjustment enter a finding that the requested use by permit for the property located at 6155 Parkway Drive contained in case A-1675-U-23 meets the criteria of the Land Development Code, and based upon such finding, approve the use by permit.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion concerning the motion? All right, then call for a vote on the proposed motion. We have 4 yes votes, which means you get your oil change station. Yep. Then we have our next case, case A-1768-U-23, and we'll ask the city attorney to introduce that for us.
And that is case A-1768-U-23. The Imam Ali Center is requesting use by permit for a religious institution to be located at 6951 Dexter Street. The subject property is approximately 0.63 acres in size and zoned single-family attached residential district, or R2. Matt Kowalski will be presenting from staff again.
Good evening again, Mayor and members of the Board of Adjustment. So this case is also a use by permit. This one is for Imam Ali Center, located at 6951 Dexter Street. So this proposal, the applicant is proposing a use by permit for a religious institution at an existing property on Dexter Street within the Adams City neighborhood of Commerce City. The zoning for this subject property is R2, single-family attached residential district. And so a use by permit is required by code to allow the use in the R2 zoning district. So just some background and history on the property. The subject property that they're proposing to use for this use, it was actually built to accommodate the use of a religious institution back in the 1950s, and this property has actually always been used for its entire existence as a religious institution. Before you is the vicinity map. So the parcel in the middle with the black hatching is the subject property. As you can see, it is fully surrounded by R2 residential, but as mentioned, the property was initially developed to accommodate the religious institution use. It would not be, or as you can see, there is to the south a fair amount of other commercial zoning. There's plenty of C2 to the south there along East 69th Avenue. And then there's also some C3 zoning in the darker red off to the right side of your screen. So the area on the aerial map in front of you that's surrounded with the red border is the proposed location for the religious use location. This is just a photo of some current conditions of the site. So that's the building which has been used for a religious institution in the past, and is proposed to be used for such use moving forward. Some analysis for this proposal. As I mentioned, this is an existing development, so no new development is proposed. Site access will be through an existing access point on Dexter Street. This proposed use by permit has been reviewed by all relevant development review team agencies, and there are no outstanding comments or concerns at this time. In addition, the review process has determined that this use by permit request is consistent with the goals set forth in Commerce City's comprehensive plan. And the development review team has determined that all approval criteria have been met. So similar to the last case, I have those available if any board member would like to see those and dig into them any farther. The public comment deadline for this case was to receive comments prior to today. We did not receive any comments from the public. We did, however, receive 2 inquiries simply requesting information on the proposal and to see what the proposal application documents were, but they did not submit any written comments along with that. So,
For the planning department? Okay.
You can go back to the site map or the aerial view, please. Thank you. Is parking supposed to take place in the northern half of that square?
parking is proposed to take place in that area, correct?
And how many spaces are allocated for that space?
So the applicant believes that parking is sufficient for approximately 50 vehicles.
How many?
50.
And what is the occupancy capacity of the building?
They are expecting an occupancy of approximately 200 members.
200 people and 50 cars?
That is what the applicant expects, yes.
And can I bring up something to tag onto his point? I believe I read somewhere that there's a lot that would be used for overfill parking. So I was just curious on the arrangement with that lot, and is that something that's been arranged, or is that a temporary solution?
So there is no additional lot. I believe what you're referring to is in the applicant's project narrative. I believe they were referring to street parking along Cherry Street and or East 69th Avenue.
Is the applicant here to provide clarification on that question? Yes.
Yeah, well, any other questions for the planning department before we have the applicant come up? Well, I do have a question. So this has been a religious institution since the beginning of construction. I'm assuming it is back under review because it has been new ownership, correct?
That's correct. So per the code, use by permits, they do not run with the land, so any new owner and or new institution is required to get a new use by permit.
All right, and it is not up for review, as long as it's the same owner, it is, grandfathered in until they sell it, correct? Or do they have to come up for review in a certain number of years again?
They do not if for some reason the owner remained the same, but the institution were to change, I believe they would have to have it reviewed again. But once the use by permit is approved for this owner and this institution, it would be good
Okay.
for as long as they utilize that space.
All right. All right, if there's no other questions for the planning department, we'd like to call the applicant to come up and make a presentation and answer questions.
Good afternoon. My name is Paula Stevie. I am the broker for the buyer, Liberty Bell Properties. My name is Paula Stevie, Stueve, 210 South Fifth Avenue, Brighton, 80601. Now, the buyer is Mohammed Basharat, and he is representing the Imam Ali Center, which will be a gathering place for families that consist of their community. Currently, they are renting elsewhere across the Front Range, and they have sought out this site so that they can have what they call as a community center. It's not a community center envisioned as we would call a community center. They mean their community that comes together. So they would be using the large 28,111 square foot lot. It's a full-size gymnasium, every bit the same as what I graduated from high school in, the same type of building. It is also open to a sanctuary. The two were at some point in time incorporated into one building. 1946 for the sanctuary, 1954 is a year of construction on the school. And the subdivision itself, the legal description is called the Baptist subdivision. So the subdivision from the get-go kind of built around the church and the school. So at this point in time, do you have any questions for me?
You know, the one question that was, let me ask everyone else. Does anyone have the question for the applicant?
I'm just questioning the parking ratio of 50 spaces to 200.
We have talked about this at length with the different community members, and they felt that what they are seeing is a 4-passenger car, so that a family of 4 would have one vehicle. And so that's how they felt comfortable with that number. Now, in addition to that parking lot, which is quite a good size, there's also, should they ever have overage, say they have a special event occur, wedding, funeral, then along East 69th Avenue is a very large, and I believe it's industrial zoned, just by the looks of it. I could be incorrect, but on that, to the south of East 69th Avenue, that entire street could allow for some overage in parking if necessary. But I think the number of 200 is probably, that's a pretty liberal number for what they have right now. I think eventually they might hope to grow into that, but at this point in time, I don't think they're close to that figure. Now, we have also spoken about the homes that are across the street from that. As you can tell, from 69th Avenue, there's a business on the corner, and then there are 2 small homes, and then there's the big school and the big parking lot. And so what we have felt is we didn't want to disturb the residents that are on the east, to the east of the school and the building. And if necessary, we would put up some signs that said no church parking, so we wouldn't affect any kind of parking for the residents. So,
I guess I understand impacting the residents, but catty corner from there is a fire station.
I'm sorry, what?
Catty corner from your place of worship is a fire station.
I'm sorry, where? On the,
It says South Adams County Fire Station number 21.
I'm sorry, can you point that out for me on the map? Oh, okay.
So I understand you trying to figure it out, and even in your packet, even the packet we provided, it says it could grow to 300. You know, I'm just concerned like the rest of the board.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I will just point out that staff has spoken with the fire district, and that site is not being used as a fire station at this time. It is owned by the fire district, it's not being used as an active station, is our understanding.
that's why I'm a little bit surprised there, because as much as I've been out to that site, I've never seen a fire truck there, so I was not aware of that.
What is the typical hours of operation? Or, you know, I know it's a religious facility, so it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be used continuously. When do they see their peak times of use?
Friday and Saturday
Okay.
mainly, and it's sunset till maximum of 11 at night.
Okay,
And during the week, there'll be light use, for instance, if there was a funeral. But other than that, it's mainly the weekend.
I've spent a considerable part of my time living in, or not living in, but visiting for extended stays, countries where a religion that would be occupying this is very prevalent. And I know that there were several times a day whenever loud music would be played from speakers. Is that something that the residents here could expect from this facility?
From the very beginning, our discussions about it was, over time, they would like to put in better windows rather than the aluminum in the school building, but they do not intend to use the school building much at all. So it'll mainly be the sanctuary. So the sanctuary and the gymnasium. So I don't think, as far as noise went, we actually talked much about that because we didn't feel it was going to be an issue for what they do. And I think Mohammed would, the buyer would be a better person to ask this. Could I have him come up? And, okay?
Sure.
Mohammed, could you come up?
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. My name is Mohammed Beshrat.
Can you state your name again and your address for the record?
Name and address.
Mohammed Beshrat, 5353 Uravan Street, Denver, Colorado, 80249.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a little bit hearing problem, so forgive me if I can hear you sometime.
So I believe the question was, would you be having, in various countries, that the call to prayers, what would we have seen from, in different mosques? Would any of that be going on? I think that was your question.
It is, thank you.
Did you hear that, Mohammed?
Yeah.
Not clearly.
The call to prayer that is kind of common in Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, there's a call to prayer. Is that something that we would be hearing? Would we be a resident in this neighborhood?
Actually, our community is very little, not too large, and we are planning to have the 2, 3, 4 groups together to have a place to gather together, and also to have their kids with them. And our prayer is not as usual, which is other community member they're having in mosque or some other places, which is some of them is large, some of them is medium size. We don't have it that size of community number. But we're going to plan to have a probably Friday night or Saturday night for 2, 3 hours, the most 4 hours. We have to come maybe about between 100 families or less, 100 number or less. And we have about 2, 3 large gathering during the whole year, and that could number up to 200 people with a little bit with some children. So it seems to me we have very simple program, which is not affecting to about the traffic around for the neighbors, and we're trying to have a very organized community that the neighbor could be happy with us. And if there is a little bit large gathering, then we are designed it to have security from ourselves to direct the cars where to park and to look around that nobody can bother the neighbors or children. So that's our plan.
And just to wrap up that conversation, Mohammed, do you see any noise happening that if I were standing on the sidewalk, would I hear any noise?
I don't believe that one, because everything is going to be inside, but not very loud. We are not going to have a speaker outside or something.
I think that was the gist of the question. Yep.
Thank you. Should I send it to you?
Yes, we'll just stay right here.
Do we have any other comments or questions from the board?
I guess I might have missed it. I blank out sometimes. When you were talking about the parking and impacting the neighbors, did you or Mohammed actually go talk to the neighbors?
No, we did not talk to the neighbors. Kind of waved at the neighbor across the street, and that's all we did. We didn't talk to them, But in my line of business, I'm kind of constantly looking to make sure everything's covered and any questions that might arise, I have an answer for. And in the way I could see everything is, I can see we'd have a lot of parking along the street in front of the church and the parking area and our parking lot, but that we would not be affecting very many homes at all should anyone else park on the streets, which is something, as you can tell, there's only the 2 residences. We're right on the end of Dexter Street and 69th, so we just kind of sweep in, and there we are. There's 2 homes on our side of the street, and then there's about, I think about 6 on the opposite side. But I've already talked to Mohammed about, let's not disturb the residents. Let's just tell our people, his people, that no parking across from the church and the parking lot. Just no parking on that side of the street. And then we wouldn't be affecting the residents at all. He or his group would not be. So.
I guess I would just encourage the outreach. Should something happen, it's going to keep tempers down.
Yes.
That's kind of where I'm headed with that.
Yes. But very happy, I think, to put up a sign that said, no church parking on that side of the street. Very happy to do that, Mohammed.
Right.
Thank you. So.
Any other questions? Actually, I do have one question back to planning. Do we not have a parking restriction parking number for religious institutions where we have so many parking spots per, occupant in the building?
So we do have one in the code, which would be 1 parking spot for every 3 seats in the principal assembly area. I would also mention that this case was referred out to the Commerce City's Public Works Development Review Engineers, and because the use was not changing, they did not have any comments on traffic or parking or the like.
Okay. So if we're using those numbers in the code, we have 50, and I can see you could probably get 50 parking spots in this lot. So we're looking at, parking for about 150, and then the rest, on a larger event would have to be surface parking. Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right, then at this time we'll close the public hearing, the public comment portion of the hearing. Oh, no, sorry, if we have anyone else, sorry, I did skip the public comment. If anyone else in the audience wants to come forward and have a comment, so.
Do you have a question for?
I think this.
If you could come up to the mic. Yep. And give us your name and address, please.
Young Hong and 6981 Dexter Street, Commerce City 822.
Thank you.
So that parking lot probably cannot fit 50 cars once you consider in the drive lanes for the cars. The parking lot is probably 100 feet deep, which means about 10 cars can fit across it, and you need 20 feet for drive lanes unless it's a one-way. So I'm speculating maybe about 30 to 40 max in terms of drive lanes included. So I am a little concerned with the parking count for 200 to 300 estimated community members for overflow to the residents. Secondly, the South Adams County Fire Station, I'm not sure how in deep that conversation was had with the planning department and the fire department, but to the right of that lot, across the alley, is a fire department, like fire truck building that they're working on right now that's currently under construction. So I would imagine that that building will eventually be used for some type of truck storage or active truck use or something. So I would be curious how the fire department cares about parking from any overflow parking along 69th Street. I also don't know how the owners will really enforce any community members from not parking along Dexter despite a sign that says otherwise. So those are my main add-on comments to the board's comments. But in addition to that, I have one extra comment, which is regarding how the catering and food will be handled, because most community large gathering events, typically if the facility does not have its own catering or kitchen, almost always includes food truck being involved somehow. And I would like to know how that would be handled and if that would impact the street if food trucks were to just park there throughout the event on Saturdays and Friday nights and whatnot.
Okay. Maybe you come back up and answer those questions.
Thank you. Since this was, it's a school, there actually is a kitchen, and it's on the main floor, and that's where they would prepare food for wedding guests, funerals, light refreshment probably for the sanctuary portion. But it already has a kitchen, so, and a nice-sized one. So we haven't been concerned about that because of that. But that was a good question, but we do have a kitchen, so, or Mohammed does, so.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, go ahead.
Can you throw up the map of the comprehensive plan?
Sorry, you're referring to the vicinity map or a different map?
I believe your presentation stated that this is compliant with the comprehensive plan. I'd like to see the land use map in the comprehensive plan that designates that.
So we don't have the land use map available. We do have the approval criteria available. The future land use for this would be residential medium. However, the religious institution use is allowed with a use by permit in all residential districts. So it would still be in line with the comprehensive plan.
Is the facility currently being used?
The facility is currently unused.
How long has it been unused?
The last owner lost the property for lack of paying taxes. They should have done their nonprofit paperwork. They were a church, and unfortunately, it was a Hispanic church, and they lost the building. So it's been vacant, I think, probably less than a year, I'm thinking. But there is also another school that is just, follow East 69th Avenue down those 2 blocks, and there's a big new school, big school, that's right at the end of that street. So there's another school right there. So I think as far as traffic pattern goes, it's all been determined.
So the school you're referencing is Alsop Elementary School. It was built on the old Adams City High School site, which is the vacant property that you see. So that entire area actually belongs to the Adams 14 School District. So whenever you say that people could just go park in that field, then they would be trespassing on the school district's property.
Oh, and I didn't mean the field. I meant along the street.
Okay.
Because there's nothing there a sign that says that you can't park along that street.
How long would a typical celebration or event take place? How many hours is that
I
If the-
think they would be all finished up by 11 o'clock at night.
In quantity of hours, how many hours?
That would probably be from sunset, so let's say in the summertime, that might be, say, 6 o'clock to 11, so maybe 5 hours. The winter, it might be, a little bit longer. But the fact of the matter is, there isn't that kind of activity happening Monday through Thursday. No, there's nothing to bother the residents over for most of the week.
Okay. Are you familiar with Commerce City's parking ordinance?
I am not.
Okay. The ordinance says that you can only park in front of somebody's house that is not your own for 5 hours.
Okay, well, like I said, we're talking 8 houses. So it's not a problem for us.
It's not a quantity of how many houses there are. If you inconvenience one resident, that's an inconvenience to them. That's an inconvenience that I'm gonna have to answer to by name.
So would you have a problem with them putting the signs up themselves, or is that something we could do through Public Works to get the signs?
That's a legal issue that I would defer to our city staff and our city attorney to determine that. That's not what I'm here to determine. What I'm
Yeah,
here to
see, I
determine, what I am here to determine is whether or not this use should be given as a permit. And my concern over this right now that hasn't been alleviated through the question and answer period that has taken place during this public hearing is, how do we solve the parking issue? If you are going to have upwards of 200 to 300 people that are going to be filing into this facility and there is inadequate parking, and we have heard from a resident who lives across the street from the facility who is echoing those concerns of parking and what that does.
So when this building was used, and that building is, the school portion of that building is 69 years old, which is easy for me to remember, by the way. And when there were games, when they'd have basketball games on a Friday and Saturday night, and that school was full, where did those people park? That historically, this school and this church has been allowed to be in this neighborhood. In fact, the neighborhood is named for the church and the school.
And
And so,
how long ago did those games take place?
pardon?
How long ago did those games take place?
Well, I don't know. That's a pretty old building. It's an historic
right.
building.
Or did those games take place prior?
Unfortunately, and Mr. Hoosman, I might point this out, Commerce City has absolutely no history on this building. None. There is no history. So it being a private operation, it was allowed to do what it did through the years and without much say. It's a nice, solid building with a nice sized parking lot. And it's sitting there. And for now, I worry, what other type of use are you looking for a use by permit in this R2 neighborhood? What other use for a church and a school?
I don't think the use is the problem, I think it's just the quantity.
It will be empty. What kind of numbers would a school and a church, almost 22,000 square feet? How many students, how many church members in a large sanctuary? There are 40 pews in that sanctuary, and they are 10 foot long. So there were a lot of butts sitting in those pews over the years. And in the days when there was a Baptist church there, and I'm sure that they were there for the weekends, in addition to the rest of the week. But I don't, at this point in time, is there a number that you feel better with? My buyer, I'm in the process of helping him with a project in outdoor storage. It's 35 acres, American Pride outdoor storage, annexed to Fort Lupton. It's vacant ground right now. He's going to be putting RVs and cars in that 35 acres. So those figures he was comfortable with, knowing the amount of turn he'd need to make, and with 50 cars. So there was a little bit of science that went into that figure. And, but if it's less than 50, and if this resident has a different number in mind, but this is a full-blown school and a full-blown gymnasium and a full-blown sanctuary. And I can't imagine something that size not having numbers. But help us out here.
What is, when you have a special event, a wedding, a funeral, you might have those numbers. What do they typically expect to see on a Friday night when there's not a special event?
Can you repeat that question for me, please?
Yes. On a typical night of funeral or a wedding, what would be the numbers?
Not a funeral or wedding.
No,
No,
wedding.
just on a-
for Friday.
Church.
So far, as our experience with the renters, which is we have a renter facility, it could be about 50 to 80. That's our.
Okay, normally 50 to 80,
Yeah,
80 participants,
that's the
which at 1 to 3 is, 50, that's, 15, 16, 18, parking spots. 80, you're looking at 25 maybe, 28. So normally, this parking lot, which for the resident is, at least according to the drawing, is 131 feet, which, typically you go 2 lanes of parking is 60 feet. And so you probably could get a total of 4 lanes of parking in here. So how often do you have weddings and funerals? Obviously, you can't, that's not something you can schedule. But in your experience, how often do you have those larger events? Once a month, twice a month, 3 times a month?
3 times a year.
Okay, 3 times a year?
3 times a year, yeah.
Okay. So it's rare to have a full capacity event.
It seems like that, yeah.
Okay.
Chairman, can you throw the aerial view back up, please? Great. Can you zoom that? You may have to exit your presentation and just kind of use Zoom function.
Yeah, if you'd like us to bring up an interactive map, we can.
No, I want this picture right here. Or if you want to bring up Google Maps, that's fine. This came straight off Google. There you go. There we go, great. Can you do me a favor? Can somebody count how many vehicles they count in that parking lot at this time?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'm looking at a different photo through the city's interactive map, and in that photo, there's approximately 30 spaces that's parking around the perimeter with the interior completely vacant. I say that to say that it appears to staff that there's capacity for, between more than 30, certainly not more than probably 50-ish, which was our understanding of the need.
Can we see that image?
Sure.
Just give us one moment. This is the city's GIS map, but it takes a few moments to load sometimes.
Well, but you have to remember, they're not just parking and leaving.
Yeah, another nice, and I counted 28.
Yeah, and then you also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 8 along the street, on our side of the street, your side of the street.
Okay, thank you.
See.
Is that a loading dock in the back there? What is that?
There is a wheelchair ramp in the back, and you can walk up and into the gymnasium. That's an exit, a nice large exit off that ramp. And there's also, you can go downstairs into the basement. So there's that, both things.
So that's eliminating some parking on site then?
I'm sorry?
That's eliminating some parking on site then?
Yeah, right, I would not have, right now, because it's vacant and there's a use going on in it, a small use in the gymnasium. So he's just parking where he wants, because it's just him. He's not concerned about exits or anything like that. But you would definitely want to keep that free, I would think, right in front of that area. There is no exit on that side of the church, where you can see in the dark gray, that's the church portion. So there's no exit on that side, on the north side of the building. So all of that's fair game for parking. But next, the big gymnasium is what you're seeing in the light brown. That's a big gymnasium. And so, as you pointed out, you would not want to park right next to that, the exit area, but it's a nice big concrete slab. And then you go down a couple steps and into the parking lot.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if it so please the board, perhaps a condition could be discussed with the applicant to require a new parking lot plan to be worked out with the city that clearly designates the spaces, the numbers, the striping, et cetera. If that would provide comfort to this board, that's something that staff could work with the applicants on.
Okay. Do we have any comments or questions from the board?
I guess I don't know if we make that a condition. I almost think we make a continuance to see that before we approve that.
Well, if we, we can, that time for internal discussion on the board. Is any any more questions for the public or planning? All right, at this time, we'd like to close the public comment portion and open up the discussion among the board.
Mr. Chair, I have no discussion, but I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah, well, make sure there's no discussion before we make the motion. Any other comments from the,
I think his motion is prudent and would supersede any discussion that needs to take place.
okay?
You ready? Okay, so I move the Board of Adjustments continue the public hearing of the requested use by permit for the property located on 6951 Dexter Street, containing case A-1768-U-23 to the next regular scheduled Board of Adjustments hearing on August 8th, 2023, to come up with some kind of parking plan between staff and the applicant.
I just ask a point of order that it would be appropriate just to ask the applicant if they are willing to or can get a parking plan in time, because it's essentially a condition, even though you're continuing the hearing. So if they are willing to do that, that's fine. If there's an absolute no, the board might consider a different motion.
So, Mr. Applicant, are you okay with my motion?
Yes, we are.
And is that time frame sufficient, a month, basically, or do you need more?
No, we don't need any more time. Thank
Great,
you.
thank
This
you.
was really the last couple of steps we're taking to purchase. So,
All right, do we have a second to that motion? Okay,
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
then any discussion towards that motion? All right, I'll call for a vote on the motion that has been presented and seconded. It looks like we will be seeing you next month then. The continuance has been approved. And then I believe we're done with your case and any business from the legal counsel or planning or that we need to address?
Nothing from legal, thank you.
All right, then we'll have a gavel. I believe we're closed and we're adjourned.
Thank you.